talked about repetition ranges broadly for strength training, so 5 or less.
Yep.
You said frequency could be as often as every day.
Yep.
Rest 2 to 4 minutes, maybe even longer if you're going for 1 repetition maximum. Yep. For hypertrophy,
sure.
What are the repetition ranges that are effective, and what are the ones that are most effective if one is trying to maximize some of the other variables? Like people don't want to spend more than an hour to 75 minutes in the gym. Because I think that while the rep ranges might be quite broad, as you alluded to earlier, there are the practical constraints.
Yeah.
So what repetition ranges or percent of 1 repetition maximum should people consider when thinking about hypertrophy?
Right. The quick answer there is anywhere between like 5 to 30 reps per set. That's going to show across the literature pretty much equal hypertrophy gains. And we can have a really interesting discussion about why that is, but I'm just remembering one thing from a second ago. I want to give a better answer for the frequency. You can do every single week for strength or every single day for strength. If you want though, like what's probably minimally viable, 2, twice per week per muscle. So hamstrings, strength twice per week. That's a good number to get most people really strong.
Okay.
You can do every single day. You don't need to though. So I want to make sure that like I wasn't saying you have to train a muscle 85% every single day to get it strong. 2 is a good number. 3 is great, but probably even 2 is really effective.
Got it. And this explains the high frequency of training for strength athletes that's always mystified me. And the very long workouts make sense because very long.
They're going to even train twice a day. Like even they'll squat in the morning, squat in the afternoon, every day.
With their eating and their sleeping, they probably don't have time for anything else.
Well, that's why they're pros. So that's their job, right? That's what they do. So yeah, your hypertrophy. Strength training programming is somewhat complicated, right? Because of, that's not the danger, but you're going to have to pay one way or the other, right? The risk is a little bit higher because the load's higher and you have to be a little bit more technically proficient. When it comes to hypertrophy training, the way I like to explain it is it's kind of idiot-proof. The programming is idiot-proof. The work is hard, though. So here's your range. Anywhere between 5 reps and 30. Like, can you hit somewhere in there? Perfect. It's all equally effective. You can't screw that up. The only caveat for hypertrophy is you have to take it to muscular failure.
And you need enough rest for the adaptation and protein synthesis to occur.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, and if you recover faster, you can maybe do it more frequently. And if you don't, maybe less frequently.
By that logic, should people perhaps experiment and figure out what repetition range allows them to recover in concert with the training frequency that they can do consistently?
My recommendation is I think you should actually set your, use the repetition range as a way to have some variation. Because most people don't want to go in the gym and do 3 sets of 10. They're going to get very bored very quickly. And so I think you should actually intentionally change the rep schemes for simple sake of having more fun. It is a very different challenge. The mechanisms that are inducing hypertrophy are different, but there's only a maximum amount of growth that one can get, right? And so you have, as best we think it now, and some people actually will espouse that we know really clearly about the mechanisms of muscle hypertrophy. We don't. It's still very much a guessing game, but the 3 most likely drivers are 1, metabolic stress, 2, mechanical tension, and then 3, muscular damage. You don't have to have all 3. 1 is sufficient. You can have a little bit of 1 or 2, and you can so you get it to play here. We've already talked about the muscular damage. Again, it's very clear more damage is not better, but it is somewhat a decent proxy, right? Like again, a little bit of soreness is good. Just don't get so sore it's compromising your total volume. All right. Mechanical tension is kind of like strength. And this is why if you do even sets of 5 or 8 and you're kind of close to that strength range, you will gain a little bit of muscle. It's not optimal muscle gain, but you're going to gain some because everything in these, like physiology isn't cut off at 4 reps and then 5 reps is a different thing, right? It's always a blend. So think of it as like a fading curve. As you get closer to the end, it fades less effective. As you get closer to the middle, it's more effective. Anywhere between 8 reps per set to 30, it's equally effective. Past 30, it's going to blend out. Past 8 to 5 to 4 to 3, it's going to blend, lesser there. So metabolic stress is one, the damage is the other, mechanical tension is the one that's heavy. Muscle damage is the other one. The third one is metabolic stress. And this is, I get a bit of an area of scientific contention, but something's there. I know something's there. We're just kind of fumbling to figure out what exactly it is. And this is, metabolic stress is the burn, right? It's there. It's why blood flow restriction training probably works. That's done very light. So there's no mechanical tension. There's very little damage, but somehow it induces a good amount of hypertrophy.
Very painful.
Oh boy.
I tried this. I have a friend, former special operator, who was out on the East Coast and took me through a blood flow restriction training protocol in a park. And I don't think I actually cried, but
you probably did.
But I might have cried out once or twice. It was unbelievable, especially the lower body movements. Now, it was a humid day. I'll claim a little bit of jet lag, but it was brutal. It was really brutal. And I
do it on the best day of your life, and it's still brutal.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better. It was intense, and people should know that it is important to use the proper cuffs for these things. I don't have any relationship to any of the companies that sell these cuffs, but the reason is that you actually need to block particular avenues of blood flow. You can't simply cinch off a muscle. You can't tourniquet a muscle and train.
Not a good
You can
idea.
actually kill yourself that way.
Yeah, you can get a blood clot.
Yeah, and so if you're interested in blood flow restriction training, I imagine you have some content about this or will at some point. But also there are resources online that people can look up.
Yeah.